Did you see that like Hasbro and OpenAI, I think it was Hasbro, struck a deal, or Mattel maybe, to put AI in toys?
No.
So this is happening. And at first I was like, okay, yeah, like Toy Story in real life, like sounds really cool. Like that could be fun. Everything's a Pixar movie. But then this happened. The other morning, Alexa asked me, unprompted, if I would like to hear ESPN every morning, which if she knew anything about me, she would know that I definitely don't. Secondly, I said no. And she said, okay, and then proceeded to play ESPN every morning. Now, for the last whatever week or so, I have a point here, and it is AI, sure. AI in the hands of massive corporations who have funnels right to your brain and now your children. And they're playing with like little Sergeant Captain Ron, who is telling you to dive for cover and is also telling you to make sure to buy all of his friends and also to make sure to, I don't know, like what can he slip in there?
Captain Ron is a fully conscious toy. He knows how to get all his friends to join the action. He knows just what to say to make sure your parents say yes.
But I think it's those, I guess I try, like part of me is like, fuck yeah, AI, this could be fun. And I think it's also important to be like, okay, there's some real considerations.
And that's like an extreme example, but there's all sorts of positive things that can come out of these interactions and this information. And some, an AI learning about your child could say, hey, your kid always does this. Has this random speech impediment. That seems really unobvious to you and like totally pedestrian, but actually there's a 76% chance that they're developing jaw cancer and it is slowly pressuring this side of their jaw and you should get them into the doc. There's all sorts of ways that AI can predict the best path for you. Hey, Jimmy, don't sign up for soccer this summer. We play all the time, and you always gravitate towards water sports. You should sign up for swimming. And then Jimmy's like, holy I should. And the parents are like, thanks, Warlord Jim. And he's like, you got it.
Also, Warlord Jim was not his name, but now
Warlord Jim. He's always on your team.
But like, there's all sorts of positive impacts that this information and these relationships can have for humanity to be on a better path, to contribute more to society, prevent illnesses from getting out of control.
We're gonna talk about AI. I think so. It seems fair and no rules. I think just unload. But I think generally there's so many ways to look at it right now, and I think because of who you are and your personal experience in traditional filmmaking and also marketing, you have a really good perspective on this, but also as an executive. So, and I'm just putting your own words in your mouth. I'm just telling you who you are to me in this podcast, which is you're sitting at the intersection of executive. You understand that there's a financial reality. You're also a filmmaker and a creative in your own right, and you've done traditional film. And you're also fucking with AI. Anything I left out before we dive in?
No, that's about right. I mean, it's probably also worth saying that I am appreciative of a lot of things in my life, but definitely high on the list is getting to work in this industry. I love this industry. I love the creative field. I love filmmaking. I love creating, especially marketing, just because there's a really unique challenge. It's not just like make something cool that I could sell at a festival. It's like there's a lot of, corners and shit to this. It's like way less interpretive and it's much more literal. And it's like, but we also have to make it cool and interesting and artful, but with all these requirements. And that is something that I just have always been totally in love with, whether I was shooting it on traditional actual celluloid film, which was what we shot on for, my first significant number of years in this industry, or digital, or now with the help of AI.
Right. Or now not at all, because you're not. And I think that's the question.
Someone said recently, I think it was actually Nick Swardson. It was like a clip from his podcast. He was like, at some point you were playing with your friends and it was the last time you ever played with your friends outside. And you don't know the last time you're ever going to shoot film again, I don't think. Or, I didn't know when I was on my last job that I ever shot film on. I didn't know it was going to be my last job I ever shot film on. When I'm on my last set that ever shoots, megabits of digital image through a lens, I probably won't know it.
Do you think it's headed that way? I mean, I feel like we're still going to be making stuff with cameras in some capacity, or are you saying you think it's headed towards just generally it's all AI?
Well, No, I mean, I think the reality that we kind of have to embrace is that like Quentin Tarantino is always going to get to shoot shit on whatever the fuck he wants to shoot it on, and
Yeah.
like at a certain level, there's, at a certain level, people can choose even today or even 5 years ago. Do I want to, be a normal fucking person and shoot this on an Alexa? Or do I want to go wild and convince this production company to shoot this thing on film? Even though the workflow is insane, we have to look at this dog shit video tap. We have to go through telecine and, wait a day to see what we really capture. Like, go through this insane process just for this little kind of only I can really tell quality about the film. And the people that can do that will always be able to do that. But like, when you're shooting, like a regional furniture company's commercial in 10 years, you probably won't shoot it. It probably won't be worth it. It probably won't be, you have $30,000 to shoot this thing. It's probably not a good use of your budget to spend that all on one day of shooting to make a 30-second spot. It probably makes a lot more sense for us to use these other tools. And, we're not trying to cure cancer. We're trying to sell some Barca loungers. So let's make you $31,000 versions, not one $30,000 version. And that's, just that certain segments of the market are definitely going to be swallowed sooner and more completely than others.
I mean, I think that's the perfect business case too, because it's like, there's this conversation around like artistic integrity and AI and like artists losing jobs, being replaced with AI, and also the question of like marketing cost, etc. And when you look at like a regional furniture store commercial, I'm not saying it couldn't be art, but generally the regional furniture store is shooting something for conversion.
I mean, and there's those things come in all shapes and colors. And, you could probably get on YouTube and find 20 furniture commercials that just went hard. And you're like, whoa, they didn't have to do this. All they really had to do was have like Gladys stand there and say, our inventory is huge. And instead they did like some like remake of Pulp Fiction or something. And then they put it on, like local broadcasting. And you're like, wow, they didn't have to be that creative with their commercial, but good on them. Did it sell more couches? Probably not. Did it, maybe it did, but maybe it didn't. I guess the point is that like, some things marketing and advertising wise, things are on a scale of creativity. Like, creative for a furniture store could be here. Creative for a, boutique art house is going to be the bar is way the fuck up here. And, creative for Apple is way the fuck up here. But like creative for your startup that does like point of sale service, that's not up here. That's like, show me some screens, show me a person at a coffee house, show me an over the shoulder of them on their iOS device, making an easy purchase, and then show me some features and benefits, and then let's get out of here. It's like, it doesn't need to be some beautiful tale. It doesn't need to touch your heart. It doesn't need to be, this big opus of an event. I mean, and if all that stuff goes to AI, who's crying about that? People like me, for sure. I mean, I've made really beautiful commercials, especially in like my first 10 years of my 20 years in this industry. I've made some really beautiful commercials with some really incredible people. And even in my last 10 years of this 20 years, but more so in the last 10 years has been about marketing and executive leadership and building a business and, worrying less about what we're doing on a granular project to project basis and thinking more about how can we make a sustainable business and how can we differentiate and how can we innovate and, advance a business. So, but, it's like not everything that I do or touch or support or sell is at that level. And so, but even if it is, I think that we probably could shift even to the conversation of tools. It's like, people were very afraid and persnickety about moving from film to digital. And, new tools can be intimidating. New tools can feel like you're losing something. You're losing the craft of the old way of doing things. But like, yeah, I'm sure we still use charcoal to cook sometimes. We used charcoal for a long fucking time to cook. Yeah. And sometimes you like to be recreationally homeless and go and camp for a weekend. But, there are better ways for certain things. I still prefer a hamburger over an open flame. That's my preference. But, you can also microwave it and it's still edible.
Is that the comparison? AI is microwaved hamburger.
I've seen some great things come out of it. I don't think that, I think you could say that maybe even 3 months ago, honestly.
Yeah.
But like, you're seeing really impressive things come out of it. And one of the most impressive things that I've seen come out of it is when people stop looking at it, they start to look at it as a point solution. They stop looking at it as a total solution, i.e., I'm not going to touch it until it is the workflow. And it's like that, I think, is probably the most dangerous mentality for any tool set, is like, I'm not touching it until it does my email, it does my work back schedule, it does my budgeting, it does my storyboards, it does the filming for me, it does the editorial, and it sends the thank you card. Until that, I'm not touching it. It's like, there's a lot of people that look at it like that, or that eventually admit to themselves that that's the reason that they're not jumping into it. And I mean, just the amount of value and the amount of quality to your work that it can bring by just taking the annoying things out of what you do. I mean, that's like table stakes for AI, like day one. It can take the annoying shit off your plate so you can concentrate more on the stuff that has real impact. Like, that is not bullshit. That might have been bullshit 3 years ago or 5 years ago. It is not bullshit today. Like, AI in a lot of ways, especially creatively, takes your time to value way down. It enables you to present 10 creatives in the time that it used to take you to present one. There's just not really an excuse to not at least use it for ideation and development, and just trying to de-risk the creative, right? It's like, if you can build a boardomatic, or you can get a voiceover, you can hop into 11 labs with this script and have this voice read it, and this voice read it, and this voice read it, and this voice read it. And you could do that 5 years ago by hiring a couple of voiceover artists for like $100 and say like, hey, this isn't going to go public. I don't need usage. I just want, literally 2 minutes of your time to record a WAV file in your voice so I can kind of use it for casting, right? And so it would cost you $500, and it would be like a 2 or 3 day turnaround. And then you'd, take the stuff back and have to edit it into storyboards, maybe, if you wanted to build a boardomatic. Today, one person can do that with 3 different AI programs. One person can do that for about $7 in an hour and a half of their time. And it's like, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you de-risk that for your client when they're looking at a script and they're saying, I don't know if I'm going to love it, with a 55-year-old sagely woman speaking these words over a 19-year-old sprightly male. And you're like, well, I can fucking show you exactly what that sounds like and what that looks like with our boards, or what it looks like with a rendering. Give me a beat. Let's meet at the end of the day, and we can look at them together, and we can have objectivity make the decision for us, rather than just like holding hands and praying that our instincts are right. I mean, a good way for, if no one's ever experienced that, a good way to, kind of conceptualize it is, and it actually gets to like the meta conversation around the comparison of art and marketing. Like, think about the reason that I appreciate something like the Mona Lisa, or I appreciate something like Jurassic Park, that's the one I always bring up, is that the magic of it is that it's entertaining to a 2-year-old. It's entertaining to a 92-year-old. It's entertaining in French. It's entertaining in Portuguese. It's just transcendent art, as transcendent as you can find art to be, as is the Mona Lisa. I mean, the world over, when you refer to paintings as a medium, 99% of people think of the Mona Lisa first. And the reason is that it conveys, across mediums, across generations, across cultures. And there's something really special about art that can do that. There's something you just can't quite put your finger on. People try to put their finger on it. They lay the Fibonacci sequence over the Mona Lisa's face, and they, put the fucking stars on that night that he painted it. And they're like, this is why, because it's cosmically aligned and it's perfectly set. And there's a triangle here. You can try to figure out why it is, and maybe, and you might be right. On the other end of the spectrum, we're trying to connect people in marketing on a whole bunch of non-cosmic wavelengths. And those could be, red just plays better in the Middle East. We're going to change the Mona Lisa's t-shirt to red. Do they like it a little bit more? Are they a little bit more likely to click in when her shirt is red? If so, let's make it red. And then when we move that same ad over to APAC, we're going to change the shirt to blue. because red is the Chinese Communist Party, and we don't want to align to that in APAC and whatever, right? And so you have a bunch of reasons for doing this that are not artistic and are not cosmic and are not deeply human. They're just behavioral, and they're cultural, they're behavioral. They live within these audience segments within those cultures and within the regions that we arbitrarily split the world up into. And it's I don't think entirely, but this is a question, that it makes the Mona Lisa less of a good piece of art, that if you changed her shirt color, it would do better in a certain region. That doesn't make it less of a piece of art, and so like the core art, the core spot or the core design or whatever, that could be art. What we do with it to change the tagline or to put the copy up here instead of down there and change the shirt or whatever the fuck we do, that's not art. That's marketing. That's entirely just trying to nail different audience segments, and it's beyond the art. It's after the art.
It's an interesting point. But so, okay, all of this is a perspective. There is also the reality that here is AI just decimating people's jobs. People are also, the uncanny valley is still there. You can see it. It's too perfect unless you do it so right. Like I think I've seen a few where I'm like, I'm actually not sure, but generally you can see it. It's very much, it kind of makes me think of like anytime a new technology emerges, and AI feels different in the way that the internet felt different, but still like crypto and, what was the gifts that everyone was selling for millions of dollars, which was also crypto, whatever.
Yeah.
NFTs, VR, there's always this massive wave of kind of like marketing bros, for lack of a better term. And you see it everywhere. And it's like, I clicked one ad and now it's like, we can make 1,000 videos in 5 minutes for $20, or like we can rev up your agency to sell, to build you systems to honor the days of expensive blah blah. And it's like, okay, so here's this gold rush that is AI. Is how, now that it's already here, do you compete? Do you even want to? It's out there.
AI is innovating and going to market faster than anything in my lifetime. No one has ever been this hasty, this excited, and because they're so excited and because they're innovating so rapidly, so incredibly hasty on pushing shit out, because it is, yes, it's a gold rush, but it's also a tremendously exciting time. Certainly not for people who like got a note on their desk that was like, hey, AI is you now, and you aren't here anymore, so pack your shit. And like, it's not fun for them, but for every one of those, there's a person on the entire other end of the spectrum that I see like working like a fucking school child, so excited, posting the shit that they made. Look what the fuck I made. Look what I made. I made it all by myself in 90 minutes with $14. Look at this. Look at how cool this is. It's not perfect, but isn't it amazing? And it's like, you've got this, at this end of the spectrum, you have incredibly excited people that have all these new frontiers open to them. And yes, on this side, you have the people that are like, but if the horses don't go on the road, what shit am I going to shovel? And it's like, and I get it. I'm one of those, I'm on both sides of that. Right. There's a big part of my revenue and my livelihood and my future that I staked on my capability of doing something that not a lot of people can do. And that is rapidly deteriorating. And, but because of that, I spend $1,500 a month on a whole shit ton of licenses, and I, spend a 30 to 50% of my work week on top of my work week to use these tools, to use them without getting paid, to use them with getting paid, to use them to augment the work that I do. And I am furiously trying to maintain a foothold in our industry and because of that, I have become an advocate, because I see how easy it is to work these tools in and how to deliver really uncommon results, even in the workflows that we still have today, without throwing any babies or any bathwaters out, just throwing a new toy in the bath. And it's like, oh my God, the bath feels like totally new now with this one little toy in here. I mean, there is the, you do feel the reality that someone has tension on the plug at the bottom of the bath and is about to just pull the plug and empty the water out of that bath. Right now we're in such people have said this, people have made this statement. if you're not investing, doing an 80-hour week right now and spending 30 to 40 of those hours learning how to integrate AI into your work, you're highly at risk. And that's a little bit hyperbolic, maybe, but if everyone did it, they would be better off. I know that. I mean, I would stake my life on that if you could find a way to be able to be doing that right now, and for the next, let's say 10, 30 months, you're going to be way ahead of the pack. You're going to be maybe a part of the new 1%, 5 years or 10 years that's able to work seamlessly in entirely new workflows with the best of tools. So
yeah, I'm on both sides of this too. And I love it and I hate it, and I get why people hate it and I get why people love it. And in some ways there's a hope that, like, yes, it gives the business person the ability to now do what probably a lot of them have always wanted to do, which is say, fuck my whole creative team, because now I can just do it on ChatGPT. This is exactly what I want. Which is, you can unpack that in a lot of ways, because a lot of times business person is fucking wrong, and that hunch that they just wanted to follow is often the creative team is needed to question that hunch, and the marketing team. So that'll be interesting just to see how that plays out. And then on the flip side of that, sure, there's all these creatives and people, like, even, you put on a big commercial production, there's so many people. There's the sound guy, the camera person, the dude who rigs up the fucking thing that the camera goes on so you can move it around. And all of these people.
Shout out Grips.
Grips, there it is. There's the word. So there's a question there. What are they going to do? But before that, I think that the thesis that I was attempting to make is creatives, at least I'm speaking for myself, the business part isn't that much fun. And so at the same time where the playing field might be leveling, where the business person can now easily get creative at their fingertips, the creative person can now easily get business at theirs. And what happens when a lot of creative people now can do business, very easily. And that could be a cool world.
Both of them could be. I mean, if I'm being totally objective, I think that, injecting a little more creative capability on the side of people that only have been barking point of view and orders for 20 years, and then injecting some business acumen into the other side of the table that have been complaining about the strictures of the people that bark it and can't do it for a very long time. Well, what happens when the thing that you hated about them is no longer true, and the thing you hated about them was no longer true? It's like, I mean, I think that if anything, it brings them closer together to a mutual understanding, and I'm sure you've seen this happen. I've certainly seen it happen on really high level projects, like, multi-million-dollar campaigns, or even multi-million-dollar single commercial shoots, where a really powerful person gets on the phone and says 4 sentences. And those sentences then get interpreted by their, VP of marketing or their CMO or whatever it might be. And worlds shift around this. And you're on that call and you're like, I don't think that's what they meant. I don't think they meant all this. I think that they actually liked 95% of this, but they wanted to make it really clear they didn't like this 5%. And the way that you interpreted it was they hate 95% of it and they only want to keep 5% of it. And I think you're wrong. And the challenge when we were shooting film was like, we're not going to find out if you were right or wrong until like a month from now. And when we're $2.5 million way spent, nothing to do about it. The only thing you can do about it now is not run the commercial and rerun last year's commercial, because the media buy is happening, whether you fucking like it or not. And so like, that was the previous regime. But now, I mean, it's really nice. Let's see, if I put myself back in a lot of those tables, once that person dropped off the call, I might now raise my hand and say, hey, might be talking out of school here, but just, sorry, give me 25 seconds of the floor. I read this like this. I feel like you guys are reading it like this based on your back and forth. Could I just buy the night? I'm going to spend 2 hours just putting together 2 different creatives and a boardomatic of both of them, or an animatic or a render of both of them, just to prove out what I interpret about this. You can look at it. Maybe you can even pass it on to them, but I would love to be less interpretive about this, because I feel like we're under a high risk of really fucking this all up by overreacting to that feedback. And you can do that now. And this is like at the highest of levels. This is like Wes Anderson shooting Amex commercial, high level. Like their producers trying to like, these really high level fucking gymnastics and chess that they have to play with stakeholders at Amex and stakeholders at Paramount and and all this shit. And, you're using these tools, you can work your way through what would normally be a political capability. The only way to work through that in the past is because you're good at politicking. But now you're in a position where you can be good at previs and rendering and solving that problem without politics.
Looking at where we're headed just generally, which is towards this place of like everyone is kind of has now the power to be their own media station. Like before, it was like, oh, you could make a meme. Sure, you can make a meme account. Are you funny? Can you steal enough other people's memes to repost it? That was kind of the world of like, you can be your own TV station. Or are you so authentic and good on camera, or at least able to keep doing this to where now you can build your own sort of TV station, in air quotes, about yourself, whatever that content creator is, influencers, etc. And now it's getting to this point where do you want to be your own fucking Netflix? Because you can, creating original content. And so it makes me wonder what is the role of massive companies and executives when things like entertainment might be getting smaller and smaller. And like, I think my assumption is like my nieces care less about the new Marvel movie and much more about the new TikTok star. And so, are we moving towards a more everyone's an indie creator of some kind and like building, because Mark Zuckerberg said, and this is a rant, but he was talking about how digital marketing advertising is going to be all AI and automated on Facebook and Instagram. Now, the human behind the scenes testing all the ads, that's going to be done by AI, who's going to take your idea and make it a billion different times and get you exactly the results that you want in theory. And so now everyone is kind of their own, platform. And then that's being run by their AIs. Like, what are we all going to do? Just going to hang out and go bowling?
I mean, this is the reason that the universal basic income conversation happened. I mean, it happened, 10 years too early or 8 years too early. But this was exactly the reason that was the relevant conversation back then. Was, Mark Zuckerberg is entirely right, at least in a certain class of media. And that class of media, the waterline is going to raise every week for the next 200 weeks. I don't know, but like certain classes of media are going to get swallowed up. I mean, there's certain classes of media where you pay a designer $10 ostensibly. Let's say you pay him $60 an hour, but they're cranking out, 6 creatives or 10 creatives an hour because they're very basic. It's just a little bit of text layout and it's one of your stock images, and they copy that over 5 times and they change the offer on it. And then they output that to the social team. And like already today, in like working out of Adobe Illustrator and physically posting shit, people are doing things for like $15 a post in terms of creating the creative and loading the creative. $10 to make it through a designer, $5 to load it through a content manager or a social media. Like that's happening without AI,
right?
And so the price of these things is already fucking nothing. It's already been ground down to dust and in certain categories, right? And so the ones that are dust on the floor are swallowed up, right? Like no more $15 media. Now it's $1.50 media, or maybe it's 15-cent media. And all that stuff goes that, all these things have tentacles. This is butterfly effect shit, right? Because what that means is that, you and I on a crazy Adderall filled weekend can stand up 12 businesses and just make Facebook business pages for them, throw $1,000 in each one of them, and see if by Monday, which one can optimize for more leads. And then we shut down 11 of the businesses and we take the 12th and we run with it. Right. And it's like, you're going to see that. You're going to see this massive explosion of independent businesses and new products. And because it's just going to be so much easier to bring a product to market and to test media in the market.
Do you think that because the other thought is like, okay, now does then real become more premium? Like, is there a silver lining here for artists and filmmakers that if you can weather this storm, and you can create something with your parents, or like the idea of like verified human, because we're going to start seeing things that you will have no idea if this is a person or not. And will there be some verification process needed to prove that, yes, these are real people. We shot these with real people. everyone involved were humans. You know, you could almost see a world where it starts to head that way if people demand it, or there becomes like unions of people like, fuck this AI, like I want paid for real, like, or certified organic, you know, certified human labels.
I just don't have a ton of faith that people are going to care enough for it to make a significant difference. I mean, I think they did like a study on like, you remember the Rainforest Alliance, like Rainforest Alliance certified with the little frog on it? I remember seeing a study around that and how that impacts consumer behavior. And because of the time that it came out, I think it actually had more impact than it would now. But, you know, ultimately people want to be entertained. They want to have a new experience. They don't care, you know, when you see I think you should leave, right? It's like you don't think you think to yourself, man, it's awesome that he struck out and he didn't need the SNL machine to make all these things happen. He made it happen himself. But that's not the reason you laugh at it. It's not the reason you watch it. It's not the reason you recommend it. It's just a fun little anecdote that sits as a footnote after you write your glowing review of how fucking funny it is. And so I personally think that I don't even think it's sprinkles. I think it's a thank you card, or it's an after dinner mint on your way out of the restaurant is. And by the way, this is made by people, because it's not the way that I just don't see that in other consumer behaviors that they're gonna, you know, and I think that certain segments will, just like certain segments are like, you know, yeah, I just don't buy from Target because fast fashion is terrible for the earth, or I'm vegan, you know, because
Right.
factory farm, you know, but it might happen. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a good thing.
I think if it happens, it'll be more of like almost like a high end something, you know, like it's the blue check mark. It's the fast pass, whatever, through the airport. It's like, I've proven that I'm a human being and now I have this. And maybe some percentage of people will take comfort in that. And most people probably won't give a fuck, unfortunately. And that's, as we were talking about it, it made me think of, did you see the I think it's MIT or it could be Harvard, one of the smart people schools, did a review of what happens to the brain on and off ChatGPT and AI. And apparently it atrophies pretty fucking quick. And utilizing the tools to write for you and all of this stuff. And for me, it's been huge. Blame ADHD for any number of things, but like scattered thoughts. You know, I'll tell 5 stories at the same time and just hope they make sense at the end of a 5-minute diatribe, you know, but ChatGPT puts that together. The exercise of having to do that myself, I think the claim of this is good for your brain versus what may be atrophying your brain. And if we're all sort of brain atrophied, content consuming, you know, scrolling, is this good? It's sort of that broader ethical question of what are we doing here?
I mean, it's a good question. It's both a question we should always be asking ourselves, and no one has the power to fully influence, right? Because it's like, this is a tidal wave of many, many boats moving in sort of the same direction.
Yeah.
You know, that's humanity isn't on one boat, right? It's like, it's a billion different interests and a billion different boats, and the eddy and the flow of water created by those billions of boats together makes a tsunami. But you can't really predict exactly the direction of the tsunami because, again, there's so many different inputs that are averaged out to say this is the direction we're heading. So there's that. The first thing it made me think of was, you know, the part of the brain that really has atrophied? Our ability to make our own fire, kill our own food. But you know what doesn't fucking matter anymore? That. And you know, and I'm just kind of straw manning this, though there's parts of it I believe in, parts of it I don't. You know, if the part of your brain that needs to do something the hard way goes away because you have an easier, better time to value, then is it a loss? It's only a loss if all of a sudden you run out of power and you've got a paper you need to turn in tomorrow morning. That's when it matters. But, you know, just like making a fire and killing for your own food, the only time that matters is when the fucking 4 horsemen show up on your block, and then it really fucking matters. But like, you know, I mean, I would also look at that and say you could take every single technological advancement and find a skill that is going to die because of it, or a part of your brain that becomes weaker. But at the same time, another part of your brain gets stronger. Your ability to build an outline for a story gets tremendously more strong. Your ability to articulate a scene gets tremendously more strong. Your ability to visualize in your head so that you can explain the picture in your head. That's like one of the core skills of being a visual artist, is being able to cast a screen in your brain and then explain how to recast that in real life. And that used to be like what, a creative director, that was like your great skill, was I can envision something. A lot of people can envision something. Not a lot of people can explain it in a way that it'll actually get done in that vision. That's why people always say, this is my vision. That is not my vision. That comes from a very literal idea that you have a mind's eye imagining something, and you are explaining that vision through briefs and meetings and V1s and V5s, and trying to bring that picture, that beautiful picture that you thought of 6 months ago when you won this job, to life in the final deliverable. And if you can get so good at that you don't have to take 6 months, you can take 6 minutes or 6 seconds, like, well, that's kind of great. We're not going to spend 6 months chasing our collective tails in 55,000 different agencies across the globe, week in, week out, to try to get to something we can just get to now. And yeah, that means less food for me today in my current, and a lot of people in my industry. But I don't think just because there's immediate short-term casualties doesn't mean it's not for a long-term benefit of humanity even, or of art, or of culture.
Yeah, I think I tend to look at it as a tool, and I think there's a lot of fair points there. I think also there's a lot of concerns. Like, I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I read the headline. Did I do a deep dive into MIT's research? No, I fucking didn't, because I'm everybody else. Here's the other thing. The concern that I had is when you think about, like, I think a lot of people, or a lot of self-described smart feeling people, are like, we're headed towards idiocracy. And it's like, fuck, maybe we are. And in this world where, is critical thinking already gone? And if it's not, is it going downhill faster? And when you pair that with the inability to tell what's real news, what's fake news, who's a real person delivering you that information, now, is anything real? And my hunch kind of is that younger people are just going to naturally develop that ability to see through the bullshit, but our parents are fucked. We're like riding that line. And I had this experience yesterday, because at first, did you see that like Hasbro and OpenAI, I think it was Hasbro, struck a deal, or Mattel maybe, to put AI in toys?
No.
So this is happening. And at first I was like, okay, fuck yeah. Like Toy Story in real life, like, sounds really cool. Like, that could be fun. Everything's a Pixar movie. And at first I was like, I think this could be fun, because I always wanted to talk to my toys when I was a kid, and now you can. But then this happened. The other morning, Alexa asked me, unprompted, if I would like to hear ESPN every morning, which, if she knew anything about me, she would know that I definitely fucking don't. Secondly, I said no. And she said, okay. And then proceeded to play ESPN every morning now for the last week or so. And I don't know how to turn it off. And so now I'm getting ESPN marketing to my breakfast that I just have to tell her to shut up. And so I have a point here, and it is AI, sure. AI in the hands of massive corporations who have funnels right to your fucking brain, and now your children. And they're playing with like little, whatever, the Sergeant Captain Ron, who is the war toy, who's telling you to dive for cover, and it's fun and funny. And then he's also telling you to make sure to buy all of his friends, and also to make sure to, I don't know, like, what can he slip in there, to like,
Oh, yeah.
And how sinister and fucked up. And it's a Black Mirror episode, or should be, or we can make one telling the story. Yep. But I think it's those, I guess I try, like, part of me is like, fuck yeah, AI, this could be fun. And I think it's also important to be like, okay, there's some real fucking considerations that we should.
I mean, I will get to a good point here, I promise. The discovery of deuterium and plutonium and all of these radiating elements, in the early term led to these extremely destructive bombs that we obviously have proliferated for 80 fucking years. Yeah. But it also proliferated into what we should have embraced and made a couple mistakes, learned from them, and continued down that trend line with nuclear power. I mean, anyone who really, really deeply thinks about the power issues that we have, let's forget about AI, forget about electric cars. We had power issues way before that. Just grid stability, that you could look up these stats and maybe pop them in. But like in a first world nation, forget about a nation that has a really unreliable power grid. But in a first world nation, in fucking Tennessee, if you lose power, a certain amount of people die statistically every hour that power is out, right? Their dialysis machine goes out, or their oxygen creating machine goes out, and after 8 hours, they die. Or the carbon monoxide detector goes out, or the gas leak monitor goes out, and that power outage was combined with a storm that opened up a pipe and it blew up and killed 9 families in a cul-de-sac, right? Like, there's real consequences to irreliability in the grid. Forget about, but now you put electric cars and then you put data centers on top of that. We have a massive power problem that is only making this all worse. Obviously, in other countries that don't have as developed of a grid, it's way worse because you have power and maybe you need that oxygen machine to keep your baby alive, but power goes out like every 25 minutes. And then you have to hook it up to a generator. And guess what? The exhaust from that generator goes into your other kid's bedroom and is giving him cancer that he's going to die from in 6 years. And it's like, there's real consequences to these things, very real, chain reactions and individual consequences and large long-term consequences. We should have moved to nuclear power in the 50s, 60s, 70s. We should have taken the lessons from Chernobyl and made better processes. We should have taken the lessons from 3 Mile Island and Fukushima and made better processes, not walked away from nuclear. And I look at this in a similar way. It's an extremely powerful tool. I mean, it is like an information nuclear reactor, right? And we can harness it and we can make steam and we can create clean energy if we properly harness it. And that means regulation once we fully understand it. That means, channeling the power of it. That was our whole problem with Fukushima and 3 Mile Island. And, you have to plan for these extreme earthquakes and extreme disasters and extreme conditions and fail safe on fail safe on fail safe on fail safe. And AI needs all those things. It needs all those fail safes. It needs all those conditions. It needs all of that regulation because it's incredibly fucking powerful. But we will make another massive error if we let the power of it be a reason that we don't harness it and we push it. Because even your example of, Warlord Harry or whatever that fucking character was you're coming up with, like, this is tugging on heartstrings, but your kid spends 3 weeks with that. You find out they have terminal brain cancer. You lose them in 48 hours. You can go into fucking Warlord Harry and download the conversations that it had with your child, and you can understand a dimension of your child that you never got to understand. You could even put that into a model and be able to interact with your child, be able to nurture yourself through what otherwise might be a suicidal era in your life, right? There's all sorts, and that's like an extreme example, but there's all sorts of positive things that can come out of these interactions and this information. And an AI learning about your child could say, hey, your kid always does this, has this random speech impediment. That seems really unobvious to you and like totally pedestrian, but actually there's a 76% chance that they're developing jaw cancer, and it is slowly pressuring this side of their jaw and causing them to have this, once in a while speech impediment. You should get them into the doc. There's all sorts of ways that AI can predict the best path for you. Hey, Jimmy, don't sign up for soccer this summer. We play all the time, and you always gravitate towards water sports. You should sign up for swimming. And then Jimmy's like, holy fuck, I should. And the parents are like, thanks, Warlord Jim. And he's like, you got it. But like, there's all sorts of positive impacts that this information and these relationships can have for humanity and for people, just to save time, but to be on a better path, to contribute more to society, to prevent issues in their life or prevent illnesses from getting out of control. Developing a relationship with Gemini, if it knows when you go to sleep and wake up, if it knows what you ate, if it knows all those, even today, it can, when you're like, I'm not feeling great, it's like, well, no shit, you're not feeling great. You had an average of 4.5 hours of sleep. I've been listening to you chew on processed foods for the last 72 hours. You need a full night of sleep and a fucking salad, and like, like only Gemini can do that for you, or something that you're carrying on this holistic relationship with that has access to all of this knowledge, both medical and spiritual and holistic and dietary, and there's great things that can come out of it, but you just have to channel it and you have to take care with such a awesome power.
Yeah, it's fair. I think it's a tool, and the tool can be used for good or evil. And ChatGPT as a therapist is great. You know, like how many times do you want to hear your human therapist tell you to get over your issues? You know, like, but ChatGPT doesn't run out of steam. Also, Warlord Jim was not his name. Lord. Okay. Did we cover everything? Anything you want to talk about?
I mean, for sure we haven't. But I mean, the only other thing I would say is for now, and we can put a pin in this because there's so much to say about it. I certainly empathize with people. I empathize with anyone that is feeling the rug pulled out from under them. I empathize with people that spent 4 to 6 to 8 years getting a degree or a master's degree in something, not marketing or whatever, that all of a sudden they get out and they're like, well, fuck, when I talked to my guidance counselor in junior year of high school, this was the starting salary. Now the starting salary is 20% higher, but inflation is such that it's like, I never would have picked this career field if I would have known it. You know, I empathize with anyone who is invested in an area or a space that just doesn't turn out to bear the fruit that it looked like it once might. But, you know, these are long-term investments. I think that, you know, not just because of AI, because of all sorts of reasons, all sorts of instability in our world right now. I think people have to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable when it comes to AI integrations into their life or the way that they look, geopolitics or, you know, whatever it might be. You have to not just be frozen in fear and dismay. You right now just need to be a little bit more comfortable with the discomfort of what life is right now and for the foreseeable future. It doesn't mean that I don't or other people don't empathize for it, but empathy is not going to pay your rent. Empathy is not going to, you know, pay the lapse on your mortgage when you're, you know, this year you're not getting your 5% raise, next year no raise, the year after downsizing. That stuff is coming for a lot of sectors because of AI. And there's, you know, all the conversation and the, you know, firm stances in the ground and the unionization, that's great. But it's not where I would put my money and my time and my energy and my effort. I would put my time, energy, and effort, if nothing else, begrudgingly learning my enemy. And at very least, and at most, you know, endeavoring to see if this new set of powerful tools is actually as transformative as people say. And I also deeply empathize with people when people are in trouble when they take two equal and opposite points of view on an issue. And the one that's happening right now with AI is, this is so fucking stupid, I could tell it's AI. This is going to take our jobs and we need to regulate against it. It's like, is it stupid or is it the most genius thing ever? Which one is it? And the reason that you're so readily taking either of those points of view like they're just absolutely true is because you're scared. You know, that's what you do when you're scared. You know, it's what people do when there's political figures and they're like, they're an evil genius and they're going to be a forever president, but also they're a fucking moron and they're a loser. And it's like, you're scared, and you're probably right maybe about both of those things, right. But you're definitely scared, you know, and I totally get that. And I deeply empathize with that because this is a huge power to grapple with. And you're right to be scared of it. It's a lot of change, and it's a lot of change coming really quickly. And I would shift that empathy to say, I really encourage people, again, to, if nothing else, learn your enemy. And hopefully, maybe either you understand something that what you didn't need to understand and it's just going to go away, it's going to regulate its way out of existence, or at least you understand it so that as it becomes more and more a part of your workflow and more of your way of creating a livelihood for yourself, you understand it on an incremental level as it develops, and you're more readily able to bring it into your work and remain competitive in your industry.
Fair. All fair things. Alex, thanks, man. Maybe we should do a recurring AI, discussion. And maybe that's just a thing to begin talking around. And maybe we can make some Black Mirror cartoons while we're at it and then release them.
I'd love it. I mean, the pace of play is such that, this week you can feel cautiously optimistic, which is like, if I had to summarize this hour and a half, I would say that's probably one of the headlines is cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
But, something may announce next week or something may happen next week that really has us quaking in our boots. And, so this stuff changes week to week. I think it would be great to do that. And I think, if nothing else, I think it's important for people to be seeing more really practical, really targeted conversations around, I would love if we could give people a little bit of a sense of understanding of the challenge that's ahead of these industries, a challenge that's ahead of humanity, but also the power and the opportunity of this. And just encourage people to at least learn it a little bit more, to understand it a little bit better, if nothing else.
All right, man. Well, thank you. Let's do it again. I'm going to end this. Do you want to say goodbye? Do you want to say any parting words?
Goodbye. See you next time.